Hi again then guys, and welcome to another circuit build on Gran Turismo Sport, of course, this time for another high roller, and this is one which I hadn't really intended to do a tune for a little while longer, probably, because it's not quite as quick as some of the others, like the XJ13 or the P4 or the Mark IV, but it was requested a few times by a number of different people, predominantly, of course, through the corners, because it's not as much of a straight line machine as some of the others. And the car in question is obviously the Ferrari 250 GTO. Now, as far as upgrades go, just like with all of my others, I haven't upgraded the power or weight at all. So if you want to do that, it will, of course, be even quicker than this tune already is. So I've dropped the power, or dropped the weight, I should say, and increased the power, but not actually upgraded them at all. Then as far as traction control, of course that's down to you. I've got it turned off. You will end up being quicker with it turned off, but of course that'll vary from driver to driver. For tyres, we've got hards on it, as usual with the race car, to show what it can do in average circumstances. Softs, of course, are ideal. Some people don't like to use those though, for various reasons. As far as suspension, we've dropped the ride height to 100mm. Front and rear. As far as the frequency, we've got that on 2.9, so quite a lot higher than it was to begin with. The anti-roll on 6, you might want to try reducing it to 5 if you find this a little bit too stiff, which some people might. As far as the compression on the dampers, I've got that on 57 with 85 on the rebound, neutral camber and neutral toe. Downforce you cannot adjust, but you do have a little bit to work with, which is helpful through corners. As far as the diff, of course, as I always say, this has a huge effect on the car, and it varies wildly from driver to driver as far as what you will prefer and what will work best for you. So for me, I've got it, as you can see, halfway for initial torque, then 5 and 5 for both acceleration and braking. With that setup, as I said, it's fairly stiff and a little bit on the heavy side through corners. If you find it too heavy, then of course you could increase the acceleration and braking a little bit, or also alternately decrease the torque. Or of course you could do all three, but find basically the sweet spot for you. And as I said, for me, that works perfectly pretty much. For people who like heavier handling cars, more understeer bias cars, then you'll probably like what I've gone for there anyway. And as far as the gearbox, this of course is what you'll want to change if you do increase the power, or decrease it, although I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. But as far as the gearing, we've got an auto setting of 193 miles per hour, then the individual gears on 2550, 1750, 1.3, 1, 0.8 and 4250. Which, as you can see, gives you a projected speed of over 200. In reality, if I recall correctly, I think you're looking at around 180, 185-ish for this kind of car. So, as I said, it's not a top-end car. Even against the other classics, somewhat like a Daytona, it could keep up with to some degree, but even then not so much. It's more of a pure cornering machine, so technical circuits really are this car's forte. And speaking of technical circuits, let's take it to Dragon Trail to prove what it can do against some other cars that can give you an idea of how quick this can be. Now, as far as lap time potential, first of all, to give you some idea, as I just mentioned, as to how quick this one can be, and of course with a better driver than me, of which there are plenty of people, you could definitely get an even faster lap out of it if you put it on soft tyres instead of hard. Again, you'll be even quicker if you put more power in it, if you drop the weight, etc, etc. So you can definitely do all of these little things to shave off another 2, 3, probably 4 seconds. But in terms of its lap potential, it's only 0.3 of a second slower than my fully tuned Enzo. And that's running well over 900 horsepower, and it's not exactly slow. It's no race car, but it's not slow. It's the pinnacle of supercar performance at the time as far as Ferraris go. So ironically, this one from whatever 40 or so years earlier is not that far off, with like a third of the power. So that gives you some idea of how quick this one can be. It's definitely a much more cornering biased vehicle, and I was actually really pleasantly surprised by just how well the handling turned out with this particular tune. It was already good, but it had some of that trademark kind of tail happiness that a classic will often have, a little bit flighty and floaty on the suspension, bouncing around a little bit. Now it's much tighter, much more taut, more focused. It's lower, the centre of gravity, etc. So if you do decide to use this tune on your 250 GTO, I hope you have a ton of fun with it. You can definitely win some events with it, although I would warn you against potentially trying this on something like Le Mans, because unless you upgrade the power, which will cost you a lot of mileage points, you might struggle to keep up with some of the others like the Mark IV and the Ferrari P4, because they're a good 20 to 30-ish miles per hour quicker. So you could beat them, you could make up the time through the corners, but be careful. But overall, that's it for the tune. Of course, you can click right here on screen to see all of my GT Sport tune setups. And that's it for this pick, so I'll see you guys next time. And for now, as always, thanks for watching.